Your company is looking into Microsoft Defender for Endpoint to help manage and secure your endpoint devices. And you're probably also looking at things like Carbon Black and CrowdStrike and a lot of other solutions out there, and you're wondering, should we use Microsoft Defender for Endpoint? Is that the best endpoint security solution out there? Well, I wanted to make a video and tell you my opinion on this, but before I get started, I wanted to quickly mention, hey, if you're interested in finding companies that will help your company deploy Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, don't Google it, don't look all around all over the place. I'm a broker for all the major companies that deploy this solution. So just reach out, email me, call me, tell me about your company a little bit, and I'll give you some great recommendations on the vendors you should definitely be quoting to help you deploy Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. More information on that at the end of the video, but I just wanted to drop that in there real quick. Okay, so should your company deploy Microsoft Defender for Endpoint? I have a few questions that you should ask yourself about your company that will help you get to the right answer to that question. The first question is, does your company currently have some type of 365 platform deployed? Meaning, are you currently using Office 365? Or are you currently using Microsoft 365? Any of those licenses, do you have any of those going on? Even better, are you currently using Microsoft 365 E5? Do you have an E5 license out there for all of your users? If that's the case, then definitely it's a screaming yes, because you're already paying for Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. But I know it sounds like a silly question, but I'm just asking, are you using it today? Because some people will come to me and they'll say, hey, we're interested in Defender for Endpoint, but they're currently using Exchange or hosted Exchange or something. They haven't really deployed a 365 product yet into their company. They're still a little bit behind the times. So if your answer is yes, if you're currently using some type of a 365 product today from Microsoft and that's deployed throughout your whole company, I would say, okay, you're one step down the road to the answer being yes, you should deploy Defender for Endpoint. Why? Because if you already have Microsoft deployed, you're already paying half the cost of getting there, and you already have it everywhere, so it's one application that can do everything. So as opposed to CrowdStrike or Carbon Black or any of these other applications, those are separate applications. So you're gonna have to run your Office 365 Admin Center plus another application on all of your endpoints and from an administrative standpoint. So if you're already running 365, that obviously already gives Defender for Endpoint a distinct advantage. So that's my first question that you should ask yourself is, are we currently deploying something like that? The second question is, does your company take cybersecurity seriously? Meaning, do the upper-ups within your company, are they willing to put out budget money for security? And I ask that question again, it sounds silly, but some companies are just looking to find an easier way to deploy endpoints, and they're not really sure if their executive team takes security that seriously. If that's the case, the answer is probably no, you should not deploy Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Unless your company takes security seriously, you're gonna get way too much information poured into you from Defender for Endpoint, telling you about everything that's going on with all of your endpoints, and you're gonna have to do something with that information. And if your company is not willing to take that information seriously, you're just not gonna get your bang for your buck with how much you're gonna spend for the security package, the Microsoft 365 E5 security package that comes with Defender for Endpoint. So that's question number two. Does your company take cybersecurity seriously, and are they willing to spend some money on it? Which kind of leads me to my third question, especially if you're a mid-sized company. If you're working for a mid-sized company, is your company willing to pay a third-party vendor that does managed detection and response, like an MDR provider, to help you deploy Microsoft Defender for Endpoint? The reason I say that is if they're not willing to pay, it's probably costs about 10% more than Defender for Endpoint costs to actually have an MDR service provider help you with it. And so if your company is not willing to spend that money, I would say you're not a good fit for it. And the reason why is mid-sized companies typically have a small IT staff. They're pretty much almost always understaffed when it comes to IT. And once you deploy Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, you're gonna get, like I said, a lot of information back. You're gonna get a lot of alerts, a lot of false positives, a lot of data back from that. And number one, you got to have the time to go through all those alerts and to know what is going on. You got to know what's going on in the security world to know what alerts you should pay attention to or not. You got to have the time it takes to track down all those alerts. And if there is an incident taking place, if there is some type of a threat going on, do you have time to hunt that threat? Do you have time to get them off of your endpoint without having a lot of time sitting idle on your network or on your endpoint? So a lot of that stuff's going to come at you unless you have an unlimited budget to hire high-end security professionals for your IT team, which most big companies don't have that. You're going to have help. Otherwise, you might as well not spend the money because you're going to get all this information that you're not going to use and you're not going to have time to chase it down. So you're going to be using half the tool, and therefore it's just not worth the money or the effort to deploy it. But if your company is interested, I would say yes, absolutely deploy it with an MDR provider. So if your company has some type of 365 today, your company is willing to invest in security, and you're willing to use an MDR solution in order to help you deploy Defender for Endpoint, I would say yes, your company should definitely use Defender for Endpoint, especially that MDR provider is going to give you, they're going to use things like machine learning and AI to sift through all the alerts to get the alerts down to a manageable level. They're also going to be able to really have a security professional look at those alerts and know what's going on in the world and on the internet to know which alerts you should be really paying attention to. And they have the time because they have SOC analysts, SOC engineers on staff where they can act on those alerts for you immediately while you're busy doing all the other IT stuff for the company. So they can act on it and get those threat actors off your endpoints, or if a user has made a mistake, they can go ahead and act on it right away before the damage goes lateral within your company. So if the answers to those are yes, absolutely you should deploy Microsoft Defender for Endpoint because it's got a ton of advantages, as I'm sure you've seen on the internet. And if that being said, if you want to know which MDR solutions are going to be the best for your company to quote, again, don't Google it, reach out and contact me. I've been a broker for 18 years for all these solutions. I know all the major companies that you should be quoting, and there's a ton of them. There's no way you can just, without any knowledge, go pick the right ones to quote. So just contact me, tell me some information about your company. I'll introduce you to a small handful of companies that you should definitely be quoting. And the nice thing is if you find one of those companies that you like, those companies pay our company our broker fee. So you don't even have to pay me anything. So there's absolutely no excuse not to reach out and get my advice at the very least. So I hope that was helpful. If so, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can stop watching all those commercials that YouTube keeps throwing on my videos. And also don't forget to like this video, and I will catch you on the next one.